What do we accept when we unconditionally accept the self? A fundamental concept of rational emotive behavioral therapy is unconditional self acceptance. The theory holds that if an individual can unconditionally accept their self, the individual is more resilient in the face of challenges and experiences better mental and emotional health. However, what is this self that is being accepted? There are numerous theories both within philosophy and psychology about the existence and nature of the self, including some radical philosophies that the self does not exist. This position was held by David Hume, who wrote the following statement in 1739. For my part, when I enter most intimately into what I call myself, I always stumble on some particular perception or other, of heat or cold, light or shade, love or hatred, pain or pleasure. I never catch myself at any time without a perception, and I never can observe anything but the perception. If anyone, upon serious and unprejudiced reflection, thinks he has a different notion of himself, I must confess I can reason no longer with him. All I can allow him is, that he may be in the right as well as I, and that we are essentially different in this particular. He may, perhaps, perceive something simple and continued, which he calls himself, though I am certain there is no such principle in me. So, what if Hume is correct and there is no self? Does this mean that an individual cannot unconditionally accept the self and that rational emotive behavior therapy's concept of unconditional self-acceptance is baseless and useless? I think not, because if an individual has a belief about the self, whether existent or not, that belief, if held rigidly as a demand, and the belief about the self is that the self is a failure, horrible, worthless, valueless, and not worth living, then there are negative psychological consequences in terms of emotions and behaviors. Alternatively, if the individual holds a belief that the self is beyond evaluation and merely to be accepted, then no such negative psychological consequences would exist. Thus, my view is that whether the self exists or not, to accept that entity unconditionally as either real or concept, the person is spared needless dysfunctional emotions and behaviors.